What if the biggest financial reset of your life has nothing to do with your salary, your credit score, or your 401k, but simply where you wake up every morning? Right now, in 2026, thousands of Black Americans are quietly crossing borders and building lives that actually feel sustainable. Lower costs, less daily stress, more space to breathe. And some of these countries aren't just affordable, they've built entire visa systems, diaspora programs, and residency pathways specifically designed to pull in foreign residents. But before you get too excited, I need to be straight with you, because most of this content online is built on fantasy, not facts. No country on earth has created a visa specifically for Black Americans. Let me say that clearly, because some videos out here imply it. What has happened is this. Several countries have built systems that actively attract foreign residents: remote worker visas, retiree programs, diaspora return initiatives, legal residency pathways that most Americans don't even know exist. This video isn't an escape fantasy. It's a real breakdown, ranked on 4 filters that actually matter. How much does it really cost to live there? How accessible is the visa? Is there an actual Black expat community? And can you legally stay long-term, or does it collapse after 6 months? Every country on this list has trade-offs. Some are cheap but bureaucratically brutal. Some are welcoming but quietly getting expensive. I'm giving you the full picture, not the highlight reel. By the end, you'll know which country wins on affordability, which one wins on safety, and which one gives Black Americans the strongest overall relocation option, culturally, legally, and financially. Let's get into it. Number 7, Tanzania. Beautiful, affordable, but harder to stay long-term. Picture waking up to the Indian Ocean, stepping outside to a pace of life so slow it almost feels illegal. Kilimanjaro on the horizon, Zanzibar's beaches, safari regions that make every nature documentary you've ever watched feel underwhelming. Tanzania is that place, and for many Black Americans, it carries a cultural and emotional pull that goes beyond the scenery. Outside the tourist zones, it's genuinely affordable, a comfortable monthly budget between $900 and $1,600 a month. Move further from the hotspots and it gets even cheaper. For a lot of people, that number alone is enough to make them seriously reconsider everything they thought they knew about what a comfortable life actually costs. Dar es Salaam is growing its expat scene. Zanzibar is attracting more digital nomads every year. The energy is building. But here's where I have to slow things down. Tanzania does not have a true retirement visa. Long-term residency is almost always tied to something: business ownership, investment, employment, or volunteer sponsorship. Tourist visas are a temporary patch, not a permanent solution, and a lot of YouTube content conveniently skips over that part. Tanzania is best for entrepreneurs, remote earners, and investors, or people okay with a split lifestyle between countries. Verdict: incredible lifestyle potential, but the long-term residency structure just isn't strong enough to rank higher on this list. Number 6, Rwanda. Africa's safest and most organized capital city. Now, this one might surprise you, but once you understand what's been happening in Kigali over the last decade, it starts to make a lot of sense. Rwanda, specifically its capital, Kigali. Kigali is regularly ranked as one of the cleanest, safest, and most well-organized cities in all of Africa. And I don't mean that in a backhanded way. I mean infrastructure, roads that actually function, a government that has invested aggressively in making this country a hub for international business and technology. You walk through parts of Kigali and it doesn't match the mental image a lot of Americans have built up about what an African city looks like, because that mental image was largely built by outdated media. The cost of living? A comfortable lifestyle in Rwanda runs somewhere between $1,200 and $2,000 a month. that's not the cheapest country on this list, but for what you're getting in terms of safety, stability, and infrastructure, it represents solid value. Visa-wise, Americans can get a visa on arrival, which is a low-friction starting point. Longer stays require you to apply for proper residency permits, but Rwanda has investor and entrepreneur pathways that are increasingly well-organized and transparent. This isn't a country where you're navigating a chaotic bureaucracy and hoping for the best. But here's the real talk. Rwanda's expat ecosystem is still relatively small compared to Ghana or Mexico. If you're moving somewhere and community is everything to you, if you need a big network of other Black Americans who've already made the transition, who have the restaurant recommendations, and the neighborhood intel, and the "here's what I wish I'd known" conversations, Rwanda is still building that. It's not there yet at the same scale. The nightlife and entertainment options are also more limited compared to larger countries on this list. Rwanda is genuinely better suited for people who are looking for a quiet, ordered, professional life. If you're an entrepreneur, a remote professional, or someone who just wants to wake up somewhere safe and organized without the noise, Rwanda makes a compelling case. Verdict: very stable, very safe. A country that's moving in an impressive direction, just still developing as a large-scale expat destination, and that matters depending on what kind of support system you need when you arrive. Number 5, Barbados. So you've been thinking about the Caribbean, because of course you have. The idea of living on an island that looks like a screensaver, surrounded by a Black majority population, speaking English with real infrastructure and stable power, that's genuinely appealing. And Barbados checks a lot of those boxes in a way that a lot of Caribbean islands frankly don't. English speaking, strong infrastructure, a healthcare system that functions, a population that is overwhelmingly Black. And then there's the visa situation, because Barbados actually did something smart. They created the Barbados Welcome Stamp. It's a real remote worker visa, renewable, designed specifically for people working remotely for foreign companies or running their own online businesses. You apply, you show proof of foreign income, and you get to live on the island legally while you work. For the remote work era, that's genuinely forward-thinking policy. But, and this is a big but, I need to be honest with you about two things that a lot of content creators conveniently skip over. Number 1. The income requirement for that welcome stamp is a minimum of $50,000 annual income. That's not pocket change. That immediately takes Barbados off the table for anyone in the early stages of building remote income, or anyone on a fixed retirement income that sits below that threshold. This is not a budget option. It's a premium lifestyle option for people who've already established solid remote earnings. Number 2. Barbados is not cheap. This is not that Caribbean island where your dollar stretches 3 times as far. A comfortable lifestyle in Barbados is going to run you somewhere between $2,000 and $3,500 a month. Housing is expensive. Food, because so much of it is imported, carries a significant price premium. The island lifestyle is real, but so is the island price tag. Now, for the right person, this is a beautiful, stable, English-speaking home base with a legal framework that's already been built for you. But if your vision of island life was built on the assumption that living abroad automatically means living cheaply, Barbados is going to correct that assumption quickly. Verdict: stunning, stable, and well-designed for remote workers, but not a budget destination, and the income requirements narrow who this actually works for. Number 4. Portugal. Here's where things really start to pick up, because Portugal has become, without question, the most talked about European destination for Americans looking to relocate, and for good reason. But there's also a gap between the Portugal that existed in YouTube videos from 4 years ago and the Portugal that exists on the ground in 2026, and that gap matters. Let's start with what makes Portugal genuinely great. It's safe. Safer than most Western countries. Lisbon and Porto have developed real, established Black expat communities. You're not moving to somewhere you'll feel isolated or invisible. There are people who look like you, who've done what you're thinking about doing, who've built their lives there, and are willing to help you navigate the transition. The healthcare system is excellent. And then there's this. Portugal gives you access to the entire European continent, weekend trips to Spain, a flight to Paris or Amsterdam, travel that feels almost casual compared to what it costs from the US. The visa system has two main pathways worth knowing. The D7 visa is the passive income route, designed for retirees, people living off investments, or anyone with consistent income that doesn't require working in Portugal. But consulates have gotten stricter about this in 2026. The days of easily sliding through with minimal documentation are fading. The D8 digital nomad visa is for remote workers, but the income requirement has landed around 3,400 euros a month or more. That's real money. And now the part that's going to frustrate you if you've been watching older content. Lisbon is not cheap anymore. I'm sorry. The housing inflation that swept through Portugal over the last few years was significant. If you're budgeting based on videos from 2020 or 2021 that quoted rents that sound impossibly low, those numbers are largely gone. A realistic monthly budget for a comfortable life in Lisbon today is somewhere between $2,000 and $3,500 a month. The fix is geography. Portugal is a small country with incredible variety. Braga in the north has a younger energy and significantly lower costs. Coimbra, the university city, is charming, affordable, and deeply livable. Setúbal is beautiful and sits close enough to Lisbon that you get the access without the premium price. The people who thrive in Portugal are the ones who resist the pull of central Lisbon and get curious about what the rest of the country has to offer. Verdict: Portugal is still the best European option overall for Americans, and particularly for Black Americans who want community, safety, healthcare, and European access. Just go in with 2026 pricing expectations, not 2020 nostalgia. Number 3, Panama, the most strategic move in Latin America. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because Panama is the country on this list that most people overlook, and it might be the most strategically intelligent option for a certain type of American. Think about what Panama actually offers. The US dollar. Panama uses the US dollar as its currency, which means zero exchange rate anxiety, no watching your purchasing power fluctuate based on global currency markets, no mental gymnastics every time you buy groceries. That stability is genuinely underrated when you're thinking about long-term financial planning abroad. Add to that an excellent banking system. Panama City is one of Latin America's financial hubs. Solid healthcare infrastructure, and direct flights back to the US that can run surprisingly cheap when you book ahead. For people who need to travel back to the States regularly for business, family, or medical reasons, Panama's location and connectivity is hard to beat. Now let's talk about the visa situation, because this is where I need to correct some outdated information that's still circulating. The Friendly Nations visa, Panama's program that used to be one of the easiest permanent residency pathways in the world, has changed. It's no longer the instant route to permanent residency that older content will describe. Today, it requires economic ties to Panama, typically through property purchase or employment or a business structure. That's still very doable, but it requires more planning than it once did. Cost-wise, outside of Panama City, which can get expensive quickly if you let it, a comfortable lifestyle in places like Boquete, Coronado, or the city of David runs between $1,500 and $2,500 a month. Boquete in particular has become a well-established expat community in the mountains. Cooler climate, lush scenery, a town that already has the infrastructure and the social scene to support an expat lifestyle without you having to build it from scratch. Verdict: Panama is one of the strongest and most practical long-term relocation systems in the entire Americas. If strategic stability matters as much to you as lifestyle, put this near the top of your research list. Number 2, Mexico. And now we're into the top 2. And Mexico at number 2 is probably not shocking to you. But what might surprise you is why Mexico keeps winning this conversation year after year, and how the expat experience for Black Americans specifically has been evolving. First, the obvious stuff. Mexico is close. You are never more than a few hours from the US when you need to be. Family emergency? You can be on a plane. Medical procedure you want done in the States? You're not crossing an ocean to get there. That proximity does something to your nervous system that's hard to quantify but very real. It lowers the psychological stakes of the move in a way that makes the whole thing feel less permanent and terrifying. The range of lifestyle options is enormous. Mérida in the Yucatan, historically safe, colonial architecture, food scene that will change your relationship with breakfast. Oaxaca, cultural richness that is genuinely hard to describe if you haven't been there. Art, textiles, food so good it's become internationally famous. Mexico City, a metropolis of 20+ million people with world-class restaurants, museums, music, and every amenity you could want. Puerto Vallarta for the Pacific Coast experience. San Miguel de Allende for the expat community that's already well established and aesthetically stunning. And Black expat communities across Mexico are growing. The conversation around Black Americans moving to Mexico specifically has picked up real momentum because people are going and talking about what they find. And what they find is that daily life in many parts of Mexico is genuinely lower stress in ways that matter. The temporary resident visa, which is your pathway into legal, longer-term residency, is income or savings-based. The numbers vary by consulate, which is something that trips people up constantly. There's no single universal requirement. Roughly speaking, you're looking at demonstrating around $4,000 or more in monthly income or significant savings. But, and this is real, the specific number, the documentation, and the process can vary meaningfully depending on which Mexican consulate you apply through. Research your specific consulate. Don't assume one size fits all. Cost-wise, outside the luxury and tourist zones, and this is critical because tourist pricing in Mexico can genuinely destroy a budget if you're not careful, a comfortable lifestyle runs between $1,300 and $2,500 a month. That's a genuinely wide range because Mexico is a genuinely wide country with massive variation in cost by city, neighborhood, and lifestyle. The safety question. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist because it absolutely does. But I'm also not going to let the American media's portrayal of Mexico be the whole story. The truth is nuanced and geography specific. Some states in Mexico have serious security concerns. Others have maintained safety records for years that rival cities in the US. Don't apply blanket assumptions in either direction. Don't assume all of Mexico is dangerous, and don't assume all of Mexico is safe. Do actual city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood research. Talk to people who live there. The data exists and the picture it paints is specific, not general. Verdict: best combination of affordability, proximity to the US, existing infrastructure, and growing community on this entire list. If you want the move that makes the most logistical sense for the most types of people, Mexico is your answer. Number 1, Ghana, the strongest cultural connection on this entire list. And here we are, number 1, Ghana. Before I get into the numbers, the reason Ghana sits at the top isn't purely financial. It isn't purely logistical. It's because for many Black Americans, landing in Ghana hits somewhere deeper than any other country on this list can reach. You know that low-grade, ever-present background noise in the United States? Being watched, being judged, being an other in a space that wasn't designed with you in mind? That feeling you carry so automatically you sometimes forget it's even there? Ghana turns that off. That's what Black expats report again and again. A reduction in racial stress so significant, it changes how they sleep, how they interact with strangers, how they move through the world. A cultural connection that goes beyond tourism and becomes something more like recognition. That is not a number on a spreadsheet, and it's the primary reason Ghana is number 1. Ghana's diaspora-focused policies have real teeth. The year of return momentum is still culturally alive. It opened conversations, built infrastructure, and attracted a wave of Black Americans who came, saw, and many of them stayed. The right of abode pathway gives people of African descent a legal residency route that simply doesn't exist in most other countries on this list. It's not automatic citizenship. It requires application and documentation. But it exists, and that matters enormously for long-term planning. Cost-wise, Accra runs $1,500 to $3,000 a month comfortably. Outside the capital, Cape Coast, Takoradi, Kumasi, numbers drop while quality of life stays high. Spend over 183 days and you may trigger Ghanaian tax residency, so talk to an international tax professional before you move, not after. Infrastructure is real. Power interruptions happen, internet varies. Build slowly, visit first. The people who thrive in Ghana are the ones who don't rush it. But every inconvenience you absorb there, you're absorbing in a place where you actually feel like you belong. For a lot of Black Americans, that's the whole point. Verdict: not the cheapest, not the easiest logistically, but the strongest overall relocation option on this entire list. Culturally, emotionally, and legally. That's why it's number one. None of these countries are perfect, and that's exactly the point. Tanzania for beauty and freedom. Rwanda for safety and order. Barbados for the remote worker already earning well. Portugal for Europe done right. Panama for dollar-stable long-term strategy. Mexico for the broadest, most practical move on the list. And Ghana, not because it's the cheapest, but because it's the only one that can genuinely change how you see yourself. The smartest relocation isn't about finding the cheapest zip code. It's about matching the country to the life you actually want. Not the fantasy version, but your real Tuesday morning life. Now, here's what most people don't realize they need to research before they pick a country. Some of these same destinations, Americans are arriving within 24 hours. No long-term plan, no visa strategy, just a one-way ticket and a dream. I already broke down exactly how that happens, which countries make it that easy, and what it actually looks like on the ground. That video is up right now. Watch it next, because understanding how fast this move can happen might be the thing that finally makes it real for you.